longest, most ongoing controversial topic that lasted between 1690 to 1865 was slavery.
Around the Civil War, emerging authors wrote influential pieces of literature for the people on slavery. Given the fugitive state laws during the early 1850s, which divided the North and South, these writers' positions became important as it opened the eyes of the nation with the ongoing conflicts over lifestyles, money, economics, state and federal rights, and politics. Where many argued that the North had the better end of the deal, writers helped steer people towards abolishing slavery, yet there was also many who were against removing slavery. Leading up to the Civil War, there was three major authors who wrote the four most influential pieces of literature who greatly affected the opinions on people on slavery.
Two of the writers that were against slavery were Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, and Hinton R. Helpers, who wrote Impending Crisis of the South.
One of the authors that was for slavery was named George Fitzhugh, who wrote Sociology for the South and Cannibals All.
The most famous American literature named Uncle Tom's Cabin, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe, sold more than 300,000 copies. It was 40 stories between June 25, 1851 to May 1st, 1852, which focused on two plot lines: an African-American slave and her son, and an enslaved man along with his family. Although one finds freedom in Canada, the other one was unfortunate enough and they died. The portrayal of the North, this portrayed the slavery by focusing on the splitting of slave families and the physical abuse that they were receiving. This was inspired by the fugitive slave law, and Stowe was influenced by the evangelism of the Second Great Awakening. The impact it had to the Civil War was it raised people's opinions and awareness towards the controversial topic of slavery because it stated facts through the personal narratives rather than just a bunch of political speeches. Another literature that was written against slavery, which was The Impending Crisis of the South, written by Hinton Roman Helper 4 years before the Civil War. It basically was about how slavery weakened the economy in the South. Therefore, they were banning and burning it in the South because it's inefficient and wasteful. It only benefited the wealthy minority that could afford slaves, which was hurting farmers, laborers, and skilled tradesmen. No slaveholders were allowed to overthrow the South's planter.
George Fitzhugh, being one of the writers who wrote for slavery, wrote the two books Sociology for the South and Cannibals All. In Sociology for the South, he blamed capitalism for creating war with the poor and the poor with one another. He promised that blacks would be economically secure and morally civilized. Therefore, in this book, he targeted Adam Smith, founder of capitalism, John Locke, Thomas Jefferson, and the entire liberal tradition. He argued in this book that free labor and free markets enriched the rich while crushing the poor. Some of the ideas that he influenced in this book were that slavery was not required only for whites but also for blacks, and that slavery is a form and the very best form of social. Another one of the informative pieces of writing that Fitzhugh wrote was Cannibals All. This was a follow-up from Sociology for the South in 1857. In this, he informed that he wanted to institute a system of universal slavery, and I quote him, he said in his writing was, 19 out of every 20 individuals have a natural and unalienable rights to be slaves. Besides slavery, he also showed his support for women's rights, and he said that the 1 out of every 20 that aren't a slave and are women deserve the right to vote. Effective literature. Abolishment of slavery in 1865. As said before, the rise of literature, especially in Stowe's novel, provided support towards abolitionists as it provided real-life narratives and the immense situations slaves were placed in. According to Lincoln, she highly impacted the start of the Civil War along with other writers seeking freedom.